guys, and welcome back to Eden's Angora. My name's Alyssa, if you don't already know me, and today I am evaluating my beautiful litter of sable German Angoras. I'm going to decide which of them I'm keeping and which I'm selling, and just make sure that they are all really good quality animals that don't have any problems. So I'm going to teach you how to evaluate your own litter of Angora rabbits. I suppose we could get into type, which is how the rabbits are built as well, but this would be specific to German Angoras, since obviously we're not going to be evaluating him for English Angora type. So guys, I ended up starting with the does instead of my buck. You'll see him later. Now I'm going to groom each one of these babies, but I'm not going to show you every single one. So basically I'm combing them out. I'm going to remove any mats that are around their neck from them turning their neck and behind their ears. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to evaluate their crimp, see how low maintenance or high maintenance their coat is in relation to the rest of the litter, and evaluate their temperament, things like that. And then I'm gonna take her and flip her over. We're gonna check for malocclusion. So basically, we're just gonna take a look at her teeth, make sure that the top and bottom teeth are straight. And then I'm gonna look at her back legs and see how wide she is. You wanna be able to fit your whole hand between their back legs easily. And she's pretty nice. Pretty nice and wide set. The fact that she's even letting me do this is good points for temperament, but I feel like she could be a little bit wider. The reason why you want them really wide is a lot of people say, oh, it's for carrying capacity to carry more babies. But in the Angora world, you really want them wide so that it's easy to shear back there between their back legs. So she looks really good. She doesn't have any malocclusion, which I don't expect to see in my lines. Her legs could be a little straighter and she could be a little wider, I feel like, compared to the best rabbits I've ever produced. You know, we're not going to be too picky. She's a pretty well-built doe. So I'm going to call her D1, and then we will move on to the next one. And I'll make my final decision at the end. So D1, just marked up her ear there, and she is done for the day. Now at this age, I'll bring them in a couple times a week. I'm gonna say twice a week I'll bring them in for grooming, just because their coats are really high maintenance. Now, if it wasn't so cold, I might even shave the coat off, but I'm not gonna do that right now to them. So let me make sure who this is. This is another doe. So I'll do her eval before I groom her, just so that you guys can kind of see how I'm comparing them. I do like her build a lot. And she hasn't been, groomed yet. I just pulled her out, so she's gonna resist this a little bit. And that's okay. I want you guys to persist with these rabbits. Don't let them get away with stuff when they're babies, because it'll make your job harder when they're older. So it's okay if they struggle, just wait until they relax. This one has a white foot too, which is neat. I'm gonna try to press her down with my chest just to check her teeth. You don't want to get bitten while you're doing this. Her teeth look really good. And then I'm gonna just keep her like this. And she's really, really nice and wide. I feel like her legs, again, could be a little straighter, but I like them a little bit more than the first doe. Again, a little bit more. I'm being picky, but I need to be. I'm picking which ones I want to keep. So she's going to be D2. keeping in mind that she does have that white paw. That is gonna factor in for me too. So I'm gonna groom her up and then I will grab the next ones. All right, just a couple more notes on D2. I did find her coat to be lower maintenance than the first doe. Her personality is not as good. She's a little bit more grumpy than the first doe, but it's still not bad. And that's something that I evaluate through the entirety of their life. So none of these rabbits have stuck out as having bad personalities. Usually they'll stick up for bad instead of good. This entire litter was exceptional though, and they've been handled by kids like their entire life. They've all been extremely gentle, very tolerant, but now kind of starts their testing period where they're going to be groomed a whole lot during the next 2 months. The ones that I keep, that is. So they're going to be, you know, groomed, and the ones that are for sale too. Until they leave, they'll be groomed every few days. So I'll really get to know them a lot better. But I do like her coat. It's low maintenance and I love her body type. She's a little bit bigger than the first doe too. And she has very nice crimp. So I would pick her over the first doe for a couple reasons. You know, the qualities are incrementally better. Ooh, see, I don't like that. But that's gonna be a training thing. She's gonna have to get used to that. That's her life, you know. It's life as an Angora. That's what I tell all my babies. I'm like, welcome to life as an Angora. You were born into the world and you didn't know what you were, right? Now they have to get used to that Angora life. They had their first blow with the blower last week and they hated it, but I'm like, you know, you're just gonna have to get used to it. It's like the entirety of your existence. Poor little guys. And I always try to balance taking care of the coat with taking care of the animal beneath it. You know, that's very important to me. But there's some things you just can't get around. They're not gonna be thrilled their entire life, and that's okay. Neither are we, right? No. So with something like this, I'm just gonna hold her till she calms down. Then when she's calm, she can go back. Never put them away kicking. There you go, baby girl. One more in here. One more little one. I think this one has a white paw too. Yep. Let's see. Another doe. So we are having, this litter was kind of insane. There were 5 does and 1 buck. But I kind of like that we're getting to compare all of the does. And then we'll get my buck out at the end. Because my decision is between the 5 does. I'm keeping 2. And the other 3 will photograph. And I already have a lot of interest from my previous video in the 3 of them, but if you guys are interested, I would act pretty quickly. You can comment or DM me on Instagram at Eden's Angora and get in line for these guys. I'm gonna take pictures of them after this and probably include them at the end of this video. All right, so I already like this little girl a lot. So nice, but she is a good bit narrower than D2 again. Man, I wish I could just pick on personality. She is a sweetie. We're gonna call her D3. Let me mark her ear and I'll evaluate her and then come back to it at the end and kind of give you an overview of her. And before I forget, because I know things are just going to be popping into my head as I'm doing this, when you're evaluating coat maintenance, keep in mind that all of these rabbits are together. So it's not necessarily accurate that, oh, okay, this one has more tangles, it has a more high maintenance coat. It might not be true. It might just be a friendlier rabbit, a cuddlier one, or one that's lower in the pecking order, and it gets slept on by all the other rabbits. So around 8 weeks is when I separate them. I wean at 6 weeks and then keep all the babies together until, you know, between 8 and 10 weeks to separate those two stressful events of weaning from their mom and then, you know, being separated from their brothers and sisters. And then I'll start to separate my babies out. So I separate them into groups of 2 and then 1, you know, but we'll start with separating them into groups of 2, and then we'll get a better idea of coat maintenance then. So I'm kind of taking this with a grain of salt, and I would take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is meant as a guideline to help you evaluate your rabbits, but you're gonna have your own things that you're looking for and things that you like and things that you don't. So, you know, use your best judgment and vary your sources, as I always say. You don't want to just copy what someone else is doing, because it might work for them and not necessarily work for you all the way, right? So it's better to have multiple sources so that you can be more sure of your steps. All right. So this little girl, I'm just gonna say it. She is a doll baby. Of course, no malocclusion, right? Of course. She's a little base narrow, little bit. She's got a nice, if we were going for French, man, her body type's really nice. With Germans, it doesn't matter as much, but it's nice if their shoulders are as wide as their hips, and they're nice and long, like a loaf shape, and that just helps your clippers glide a little bit more along their back. So I would say she feels like she has a steeper slope right now. That could even out as she gets older. And again, I'm being super picky, but I have every right to be, right? I'm picking the future of my rabbitry. And if there's anything seriously wrong with a rabbit, I won't sell it. You know, I'm not going to do that. But if they're like not perfect, well, who is? And I'll just recommend that they get a buck, in this case, that would offset the flaws of the doe, if that makes any sense. All right, so I'm done with her, D3. She is the sweetest one so far. Now let's get out our next doe. All right, this is gonna be D4, and this was my heart rabbit. Look it. Because of her little snip and her entire white leg, I was sure if I was not taking this from a business perspective that I would keep her for sure, because she is just so cute. I'm gonna mark her ear as D4, and then we'll do her little eval. And again, I'm gonna do that before I groom her so that you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. So I'm gonna stretch her out and feel her slope. She's a little steep too. Good girl. Not quite sitting straight. At this age though, like there's a Rex breeder that told me don't look at them. Between 9 and 12 weeks, don't even look at their like type, their conformation, and I'm breaking that rule right now. They're between 9 and 10 weeks. She is wide. Oh my word. Love that. So yeah, we're not gonna like fault them too much. We also want to like recheck genders just to make sure that we're sure of their gender. So I will come back with final notes after I groom her. All right, so D4, my heart rabbit. She is wonderful. Nice and wide, you know, a little bit steep through her rise, which is like how fast the slope of their back comes up. Little steep, you know, not perfect. Her personality is like wonderful, above and beyond. I love her a lot. So we'll see how she stacks up against the others. I'm not going to make a decision until I've evaluated all 5 does thoroughly once, if not twice. But I wanted to talk to you about something else. I guess I can do that while I am looking at this final doe. Come here, baby girl. Come on, babe. Come on. Okay. Yeah, that's her. So, nice coat too. All right, here she is, D5, the last doe to be evaluated. And I did want to talk to you guys about something that's kind of a sore subject. Man, all of these are so nice and wide. Okay. And that is culling. So, a lot of people think it's unethical to cull, and I don't want to start a big debate about it or anything, because the fact is it's unethical not to cull. If you're going to put rabbits out there in the world that have major flaws, whether that be personality or a major physical flaw, they are not going to have a good quality of life. People are going to suffer, and they're going to suffer. So, and I'm not talking, oh, like its coat mats a little more easily than the others. I'm talking about like malocclusion, which you can look up what that is, different examples of it, but it's basically crooked teeth or a crooked jaw. If they have those things, and I have never found it in my line, so it's not like it's everywhere, but if I did find it, that rabbit would be humanely culled, not rehomed as a pet, which is another way people use the word cull. Sometimes they don't mean kill, they just mean cull it from their program, as in, hey, I don't want to breed this animal, so I'm going to pet home it out. But a true cull is to be humanely euthanized. And the reason for doing that would be if the rabbit, like I said, doesn't have a good personality. I have certainly culled for personality. And also if it's just not a good example of the breed, and I feel like it's not going to be able to find a good home. And I mean that like it has to be seriously flawed. But if I feel like someone is going to take that rabbit that I think is seriously flawed, has like a genetic defect, and breed that animal, it's better to just not put it out there. I have had rabbits too where I've sold them as culls. When I first started, I was like, I can't do this, I can't cull. So I sold them to a cull buyer as like, these are culls, these will be culled. And I got that promised. She was going to put these rabbits down. And then I was contacted about a year later from someone with a very sick rabbit, asking me for advice. She also said she couldn't handle it, and it was completely covered in mats. Would I take it like as a rescue? And she loves this rabbit, but she just can't deal with it. And I found out, because I'm like, there's not many Angoras in my area. I found out it was one of those cull rabbits. She's like, please don't tell who gave it to me. I promised her, you know, I wouldn't tell anyone. I'm like, man, people are liars. I mean, like you didn't know that. Oh, there's a lot more good people than bad, but from then on, I'm like, okay, I'm taking this into my own hands, and you can think I'm a monster for that or whatever, but the fact is it needs to be done sometimes. Not often, but when it needs to be done, you gotta buckle down, because we need to be responsible. So if I did find something like malocclusion, or a rabbit was super base narrow, which means its hocks were together like this and its feet were splayed out like this, that rabbit's gonna mat. Its legs are gonna mat together extremely easily. And I don't feel comfortable sending a rabbit out like that. Because if it's bred, then there's going to be generations of rabbits like this, right? And that gives Angoras a bad rap. People think Angoras are so hard. They're always matting and disgusting. Those rabbits end up at rescues. They end up being let loose, free, because people just can't handle the workload. So I strive to create a better rabbit with every generation, and every responsible breeder will strive to create a better rabbit with every generation where we don't have these problems, so we don't have to cull. And now I'm quite a few generations into this line, and I can say, yes, now I'm enjoying evaluating my babies because I'm really happy with them. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens from generations and generations of really hard work and really hard decisions. But to have all of these rabbits have like stellar personalities, really nice builds, I'm just pretty over the moon about them. And I'm pretty over the moon about her, D5. I'm having a hard time picking my rabbits. Man, I forget if I already checked her teeth, but I'll check them again. There. I use my chest sometimes to help hold them still. They'll have our methods. Yeah. I like her because she doesn't have any white markings on her, too. She's just solid. And I used to be all about the Vienna markings, but I like a little contrast, too. It's kind of nice to have a nice solid sable rabbit. So this is D5. And I have evaluated all of my does. They're super nice. I have 3 that I kind of want to keep. So I'm having a hard time with that. And I might not be able to decide on 3 to let go of today. Oh no. Because I really like D2. I know from, I think I know. Let me take her out again. Hey, there's a lot of this, a lot of back and forth. When you're evaluating a litter, there's nothing wrong with that. Take your time. And I'm going to take mine. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into creating a litter of rabbits. So you need to be sure of your decision. So side-by-side comparisons. And this is a good time to stick your hand between their back legs and feel the width of them while their feet are on the ground too. And you should also evaluate them for straightness. So try to get them to sit straight on their own, not leaning up against each other, right? And evaluate them. Not that that necessarily won't change, but yeah. Okay. So D5 is just not sitting straight. D2 is sitting straight. She was the testiest of the group, and she does have a white foot, right? But she's staying for sure. So now it's just between D5 and D4, my little heart rabbit. So let's put them side by side. I already evaluated her for straightness, so now I will evaluate her. Yeah, she's a little bit narrower. Still not bad, but she's a small rabbit in general. Sorry, I wish you could see them a little bit better. Yeah, this one's way wider. But man, and I really like her too, and she's a solid color. I wanted to keep a solid one. See, it's so hard. It's hard to evaluate your rabbits because I want to keep them all, but I can't. I need to save room for my next litter, and for subsequent generations of these guys. And sometimes I will say, I can't let go of them, and I'll keep them, grow them up, get a litter from them, and then sell them as broodstock, which is a nice thing to be able to do too. I'm also just going to put my fingers on their hip bones and evaluate their loin width. This one has a wider loin than this one. But everybody has flaws. We need to work with all of them. They are just the sweetest. Oh no. Oh, you're so sweet. That's the best part about breeding these guys. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna take my time with this. I will reveal my final choice at the end, and I'm gonna evaluate my buck and make sure he's breeding quality before we continue on. If he's not, then I will let him go to a fiber home. So I have been in that situation before where I really needed to keep a buck from a litter, one of my last ones. And I just couldn't do it. He was a little base narrow, and I gave him to a fiber home, and I still need a giant Angora buck. Still need one. And the doe really needs to be bred, and his sister is growing up and is like ready, but I can't find a decent quality giant Angora buck, and I will just keep them as fiber animals until I can. So I do take it really seriously, especially with a buck, because you're gonna have more does than bucks, odds are, and you want your buck to be really, really high quality because you're gonna be breeding him to multiple does. He is such a little cutie, and he's solid, so I will have a solid sable if I don't keep D5. See, I'm gonna start getting confused. With bucks, there's one more thing you have to evaluate, and that is you have to look at their actual penis. Yeah, I said it. I had to say it. You have to look at it to make sure it isn't split, which would have, like, instead of a hole, it would be like a long line that would go like halfway down it. I'm talking like, you know, it's not just a slit. It's like goes halfway down. So you can mistake them for does, actually. And I'm not going to get into sexing in this video. I've already touched on so many subjects and different things you have to look out for. So I'm evaluating him for width right now. He's not the widest. I mean, he's also not the straightest, but he's nice and big. And we'll just see how he grows into himself. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. And at the same time, I'm not like, oh my word, this is the best. Like Archangel, I was like, this rabbit, yes. So I'm not like that with him, but he is pretty nice. I'm liking him. He has great crimp, super personality too, but he's also nice, and he's pretty wide. And don't go like this to your babies and be like, oh my word, their legs are splayed. You have to get their legs underneath them somewhat to see they're not that bad. Their toes might turn slightly out. So, and you also have to get their hips straight. Sometimes they'll be sitting on one hip, right? And then they look crooked. So you have to just be mindful of the fact they're moving their legs independently like we would. See, and now his legs look straight. So just evaluate them and reevaluate them again. Don't make a decision on one evaluation. Keep doing this like I did. This isn't my first time evaluating these guys. It's just a little more in depth, but we haven't even done their first nail trim yet. Like, I'm going to be seeing a lot of these guys, and we'll continue to monitor them over that course. Like I said, they're going to be coming in now just about every other day to be groomed. So we're going to get to know them really, really well. But anyway, I'm done with this guy. The exception to the rule with multiple evaluations is malocclusion. You can see that if their teeth are crooked. But again, don't hold their jaw crooked when you're evaluating their teeth and be like, oh my word, his jaw is crooked. If you're pressing on it with one side of your hand, you can make it look crooked. So be careful. Make sure that you have their jaw straight in your hands when you're evaluating teeth. There is room for user error. So experience is the best teacher there. All right, guys, I am here with my 3 keeper bunnies. I kept my Buck and I kept D2 for her great type. And I kept my Heart Bunny, D4. Yeah, we kind of knew that was going to happen, right? She is just stellar personality. Still, I feel like D3 was the sweetest. But that's okay. We can let some sweet bunnies go out into the world as well. So I am thrilled with my choices. I'm so excited to watch them grow up and for you guys to watch them grow up. So when I get them back down to the barn, I will be putting D2 and D3 or D4 together, and they'll be getting names now that I know that I'm keeping them. So I'm gonna be bonding them in sets of 2, you know, while they kind of get used to their life without their mom and they continue to develop. But I don't want to put all 6 of them together from now on because they're just ruining each other's coats. So for the next few months, they will be in pairs unless they leave for their new homes before then. So I thought I'd end this video with a couple pictures of the babies that I took after I was done filming. They're just so gorgeous and I cannot wait to work with their fiber. If you're interested in any of the babies that I am letting go of, please feel free to DM me on Instagram. And thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.